This week, we're going to the grassroots.
Welcome to the Yes in the City show. I'm Naz.
I'm Cammy.
Today we are joined by our friend and long-time Yes campaigner. He's also the membership secretary for the SNP locally and fountain of knowledge, Mr. Ian Smillie. How are you today?
I'm very well, thanks for inviting me.
Very welcome.
Thanks for coming along, Ian.
No bother.
So, to get started, I just want to talk about, the chaotic campaigning, the megaphone marches and the dancing between the doors. What's the point of it all?
The point of it all is we want to be normal, independent country. I was a Labour supporter. I was always a Labour supporter. My mother and father were way ahead of me. They were SNP long before I was. I fell out with Labour during the Tony Blair years. And I was basically in the wilderness. I didn't know who to vote for. I even voted for Jim Leishman, for God's sake, at one time. Because I thought, if Jim wouldn't want to ruin his reputation in Dunfermline, he's my man. Not sure that was the greatest vote I ever made. And it was only when the referendum came along that I had to find out which way I was voting. Because up to that point, I didn't know if it was yes, I didn't know if it was no. Half an hour of research, and it was blindingly obvious. It was blindingly obvious that it was yes. It was yes. I couldn't believe that I'd been so stupid all these years, wanting another country to rule my country. But that's the way I was. I was steeped in the trade union movement, and in Glasgow, they used to weigh the Labour support. And basically, if you're a trade unionist, you would either vote Communist, which I was pretty close to doing, or Labour, which is what I done.
I can relate to that. I think a lot of ethnic minorities, when they came to this country, they were also very, very naturally went to the Labour side. And I think it becomes a habit, doesn't it, Ian?
It became a habit because at that time, as far as I was concerned, it was either Tory or Socialist Labour, and that's when Labour were a true socialist party.
And then we seen the light.
And then they ditched their socialist clothes. The SNP gradually picked them up to be the party they are today, a true socialist, left of centre party. And Labour are still, Labour now, if your name begins Sir, don't tell me you're the leader of a socialist movement.
Definitely. We touched on the work that you've done since I've joined the exec. You've always been someone that I've seen kind of lead from the front in terms of the campaigning. And when I say campaign,
very nice of you to say so. I don't see myself as that person.
Well, a lot of people
very nice
do.
Of you to say so.
I'll give you some examples. When I joined, obviously I've been an activist for a while, but maybe not so much involved in the kind of the official side of it, being an office bearer for a branch. But it came to a stage in my life where I wanted to do that. But and when I joined, I wouldn't say intimidating, but I was quite like, wow, these are the people that, when you see a stall in the town or you see people handing out leaflets, what I didn't realise was the organisation that goes into the background.
The work that goes into it.
And I think there's lots of people like Ian Smillie around the country that are going to be able to relate to this. When I got involved, instead of just going out and shouting about independence, the time it takes to fill envelopes, the long nights in the rooms.
And enjoyable though.
It's enjoyable because you're mixing with people, knocking on doors. One of the first stalls I went to, I remember Ian was there. No, it wasn't one of the first stalls. It was a stall that was important to me because it was when I stood for election as local councillor. And I remember you'd come along, and it wasn't that I was nervous because there was quite a few of us there, but I was definitely more watching what everybody's doing. So everybody's potting around. But I remember when you arrived, you literally there was no messing about. You just grabbed the clipboard and you just straight into people. And I was always so impressed by that. I was.
Thank you. There's people that do it far better than me, and they know who they are. And these people are just legends compared to me. Yeah.
No, you are as well. I mean, I thought you were amazing. And then the other thing as well, obviously you're the membership secretary in the branch. Again,
it's the best job in the branch. Honestly, it is.
But the work that goes in. I mean, if you said data, be it the Yes Movement or any of the independence parties, there's so many people that are the backbone of the movement and the different independence parties that, managing the data, making sure the membership numbers are right, making sure the people are in touch. And I know when new members join, it's your job to go and welcome them.
It is, but it's a joy. You get to chat their door, hopefully get them in, and speak to them. And quite often, it's the first political party that they've ever joined. So to have somebody turn up at their door, say thank you for joining the party, we give them a wee welcome pack, nothing exciting. The SNP doesn't do exciting welcome packs. But it's
the engagement, isn't it?
It is, it's the engagement. And it's a fantastic job because you get to meet people who are buzzing about joining the party. You couldn't ask for a better job.
This around the country though, I just think there's so many people that relate to what you're saying, in terms of it's a payless job, isn't it? Campaigning and pushing, and the hours that we put in, and I always say that I know the kind of direction comes from, if you like to say, the top brass or the people in the main seats, but the activists are the backbone.
Oh, for sure.
Of the movement.
For sure. I can remember when I first joined the party, and you're talking about being nervous, apprehensive, and going to my first branch meeting. And it was these people knew what they were doing, and I certainly didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And they talked in acronyms.
Yeah.
AOB.
Yeah.
I'm like, what does AOB mean? The CA.
What's the CA?
And as I got a wee bit more confident, I threatened to get a bell, and if anybody used an acronym, I would ring this bell, and they would have to explain. Because if you are a new member going to your first branch meeting, and these people are basically speaking a different language, and you don't want to make yourself obvious by saying, I don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So why do we do it?
Yeah.
It's quite weird that you mentioned that, because I've been a member since 2018, but I only started going to branch meetings, it must have been maybe over half a year ago.
Yeah.
But you were the first person that emailed me when I wanted to start getting involved with it more. I can remember that quite vividly, because I remember coming into the Yes Hub and being like, I want to get involved, but I have no idea how to.
Well, I got a message from somebody who met you that day, and as you were under 50, I thought, aha, youth officer.
I know I mean.
Because we've always struggled for a youth officer.
Yeah.
And
I was the old youth officer.
I've taken over from you.
Yes.
And it was fantastic that you took up the post.
Yeah. It was a privilege, to be fair, and I can remember the first branch meeting as well, because you spoke to me quite a lot during it, and it did make it much more relaxing.
I remember how intimidating it was, and if we can do anything to welcome people in so that they don't feel as if they're entering this different world where they speak a different language, it's all good.
So you've seen quite a few elections and a lot of campaigns, and obviously we've all seen the referendum in 2014. So
I'll tell you the reason I joined.
Right, go on.
Because when I woke up on the 19th of September, I don't think it's too dramatic to say it was like there was a death in the family. I felt terrible. I went to the shop, and a guy came in and he wanted wipers fitted or something, and I went out to fit them, and he was looking as despondent as I was. So we got into a conversation, and he was a Yes supporter. He'd done a lot in the campaign, and I thought, I didn't do anything. And at that point I thought, if we ever get a chance of another referendum, I do not want to wake up the following day win or lose,
Yeah.
thinking I should have done more.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was at that point I says to my wife Pamela, I says, we need to join the SNP, we need to get involved. If we get another go at this, I don't want to wake up like this again.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually gonna ask you something like that. I mean, you've seen so many campaigns. You kind of answered it, but the question was like, how do you keep the drive going?
Oh, the drive is when you look at the chaos of a Tory government with an ever creeping power grab, and they're coming for the Parliament. Make no mistake about it. Absolutely. They are coming for it, and I want my grandchild in this country to grow up in an independent country, so that she doesn't have to go through the torment of a Tory government. Scotland hasn't voted Tory, it's a well-known fact, since 1955.
Yeah.
Yet they're still telling us,
Yeah.
you can't do that, you
Yeah.
can't do this,
Yeah.
no you won't do that, no.
Yeah. We always talk about that, about 1955, because
Mm-hmm.
I'll always say...
Rosa Parks was on a bus,
Yeah.
getting told you cannot sit there the last time we voted Tory.
It's the only way. I like what you said about they're coming after Holyrood, because
Oh,
I
they
agree
are.
with you. It's the only way that they'll get back in control, because they know they won't. But obviously I know you as a friend as well, Ian, and going on the drive, I know that you had cancer. You were diagnosed with cancer in 2020. It was bowel cancer. And you were still coming. You weren't coming as often, obviously. It was a really difficult time for you. But I remember you were still active, and you were still. It wasn't like we replaced the membership secretary at the time.
Well,
it just shows what a drive you have for it. Like even during that time.
Because we're joint membership secretaries, what I couldn't do during my time with chemo, Pamela picked up the slack. Yeah. But if we could rewind,
she's the real boss. We know that.
Of course she is. Yeah. If we can rewind a wee bit. To me being diagnosed, I had done no symptoms at all. I had always done my bowel screening, where you get the wee stick through the post, where you take a sample and you send it back, ironically, to Dundee.
So sorry to interrupt you, but why did you do the sample? Because you said you had no symptoms.
I had no symptoms at all, but in Scotland, and I will be political about it, in Scotland we're very fortunate. We get tested from the age of 50. England, don't know about Wales, but England, it was 60. And I've got friends that live in England. They are bringing it down slowly, but they're still, I think, at 56, 57.
So that test was life-saving for you now?
It absolutely 100% was. 100% was. So no symptoms. So you send it back, and most people, there's a wee bit of anxiety, but you put it to the back of your mind.
Aye.
And you think, oh, I'm not going to hear bad news for that. Now, I don't know if this is common because I've not spoke to anybody else about it. When the letter came back saying there was a problem with it, it's not necessarily cancer, we need to get you in. A lot of people I've seen on telly and things like that, I've seen it's like a bus hitting them, a train wreck. I didn't get any of that. I thought, oh, it's something I've got to deal with, and I just took it one step at a time. For me, the cancer diagnosis, it never hit me like a steam train. I just dealt with it. Now Pamela says I'm a freak about lots of things, and
she does.
Yes,
she does, yeah.
and maybe it is a bit freaky, but I never went through that huge. Gladly, I never went through that huge low of thinking, shit, I'm going to die. I just thought, right, we need to get it dealt with, and at that, the Scottish NHS step in, and I will chastise anybody that criticises them after, and I can get quite emotional about this.
Yeah.
After the care and attention I've had through every stage of my cancer journey.
No.
Nobody will put their hand up to say I want to get cancer, but anybody that does get that letter back, honestly, they are fantastic. They are real heroes.
I remember when we're obviously all on various group chats, but I remember when the message came through that you went through your chemotherapy and then...
Chemo was tough.
Yeah,
I had no idea before I started doing it that I think there's over 50 different versions of chemo. When I get told I was going to get chemo, I thought, well, there's the rest of my hair away. Not that I've got much to lose. No, the version of chemo that I got, no hair loss at all. That was a surprise to me.
Yeah. But you had some side effects, though, didn't you?
Oh, side effects.
Sickness, you said.
That was a horrible side effect. And you could almost set your watch for it. By it, I was on intravenous on a Monday, and I went through a 3-week cycle. So it was intravenous and tablets. So by the Wednesday tea time, that was me out the game. Definitely couldn't eat. Struggled to drink a lot, and I felt sick for 4 days. And then it gradually eased away until you would get your next 3-week cycle, and you would go through the same again.
I think the hard part, when my uncle had cancer a few years ago, and the hard part is the effect on your family as well.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. I will always say, and again, Pamela says I'm a freak. I think I get the easy part of it. Everybody else had to pick up the slack. My business partner, he had to pick up the slack, and now all my colleagues at the work, they had to pick up the slack there, while I'm
I don't mean the slack. I mean more like, I think that is just standard. You'd be the same, we'd be the same, but I'm more sure. Just like the worry. And
the worry, yeah,
for on
absolutely.
On your family,
I don't think I ever worried about it.
Yeah.
I had complete confidence in the surgeons,
the
consultants, the nurses, the people that came in, because it was through COVID, to methodically clean the ward and the room. I had complete confidence in these people. There wasn't one point that I didn't think I was going to recover from this.
Yeah. Well, you did, and I remember when I saw that you got the all clear. I know your name's Ian Smillie, so excuse the pun, but it was amazing to see your smiley face back on the chats and on the Zooms.
I'll tell you, one of the nicest things was another branch member, Shamina, who I'd met and knew just to say hi to and things like that. And honestly, it blew me away. She invited myself and Pamela.
I remember this.
Up to her house, and she made me a free of cancer cake. Yeah. Honestly, and I barely knew her, and that will stay with me. Yeah. All my days. Yeah. It was just a beautiful thing to do. Yeah. It really was.
She's a sweetheart.
She is.
I think when she had joined, and that's when you were going through your chemo and stuff like that. So obviously she'd heard about you and stuff like that. So
it was such a nice thing to do.
Yeah. Sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, like, do you know, it's at a time when the NHS gets absolutely pelters from, and it's not. In fairness, it's not restricted to just the Tories who are dismantling it. Like, it does seem to be getting pelters from every single side of the argument. It's great to hear, somebody who's so supportive of it and who has had such a positive experience with it.
Honestly, the care and attention that I had, I was treated, depending on their age, either like their grandfather, yes, I'm that age, or their father, or their brother, or whoever. Honestly, the care and attention. Everybody in the Vic in Kirkcaldy, absolutely world class.
It's great to hear, and it's good to hear that you're feeling strong and fit again, and good to see you around again. So.
The one thing I would like to cover is I was the first one in Fife. They can't take this away from me. That the operation didn't go to plan, but they can't take it away from me. I was the first one in Fife to get the robotic surgery.
Really?
Yeah. So they said there was a possibility of getting a stoma bag. It was remote, but the professionals that they are say it is a possibility. So I didn't come out with just one. No, I came out with two.
Right.
I had an ileostomy and a colonostomy. Yeah. And when you wake up from the surgery, it was supposed to be 5 hours, ended up it was 10.5.
Wow.
Because it all went a bit peak tom. Through no fault of anybody. And the only reason I'm here today was through the skill of Neil Cruikshank, who's my consultant, and all the team. He is not alone, but the whole team. So they thought there was only cancer at one point. Turned out there was cancer at 2 points, which is why I had an ileostomy, which is at your small bowel, and a colonostomy, your large bowel.
Yeah.
Fast forward. They then got rid of the ileostomy, and I'm left with the colonostomy.
Yeah.
Which, again, nobody would put their hand up. Can I get a colonostomy, please?
Yeah.
But it's not the worst thing by any means that could happen to you.
I just really commend you for speaking about it, because I think with that procedure, a lot of people don't want to talk about it.
They don't.
They feel embarrassed about it. I think it's really brave of you to talk about it, because I think a lot of people do feel embarrassed about these kind of things, and I think it's good to talk about these things.
It is. I'm no great hero. I wish I was more forthright about it. I still feel. What's the word? I still feel not embarrassed by having it, but I would, if somebody else seen it, I would feel embarrassed for them.
Yeah.
Whereas I would like to talk about it more, so that it becomes more mainstream. The lassie that done it, the bowel babe, I can't remember her name. She was brilliant for it.
Yeah.
She brought it a lot higher up, becoming not a stigma, not a thing that you don't talk about. But I think there's a long way to go before we can talk about it.
Definitely.
It's positive to see as well. I think there's more goes to the Crohn's disease, but I think Hannah Bardell raised that in Prime Minister's questions just a few weeks ago with the Cut the Crap campaign, and I'm fairly certain one of our constituents met with Rishi Sunak about his battle with. I think it is Crohn's. It's still important that we talk about these things more openly, and on that sort of platform as well. Prime Minister's so it's more public.
And our show is about Talks is about independence, but it's also about people's stories, isn't it?
Exactly.
And everybody's going through different things, different stages in their life, but we're all fighting for one beautiful cause, aren't we? Yeah, amazing. And you're originally from Glasgow, like myself.
Yep. East End of Glasgow.
East End. I'm from the West End, so we're from.
You were for the posh bit. I was for the pure bit.
When did you move to Dunfermline?
I moved through. Mrs. Thatcher decided for me that I should no longer work in the railway when she was in power. So I moved through here 83, 84.
Oh, long time. Yeah. Amazing.
It's obviously you're a grassroots campaigner and a big part of the Yes movement. So I would like to get your thoughts on seeing the Independence Minister appointed and him sort of reaching out to various organisations like Believe in Scotland, for example, and trying to engage with them. What is your sort of thoughts on that?
It's been a long time coming. I welcome it with open arms. I would welcome him through to Dunfermline if he wants to come through. And I think it's important that the Independence Minister goes round Scotland, visits branches, visits non-SNP organisations, gets their feedback. And I love what Stephen Flynn's doing, along with Mary Black, going around Scotland, getting the real feeling back. What the grassroots
listening to the branches, listening to the people.
To the branches.
I think it's a really good point, especially about Jamie and having an independence minister now, having someone very specific to deal with it. I couldn't agree with you more. He needs to get around and speak to people and get the feedback. And that. So people like yourself that can give that kind of feedback of what's happening at the doors and how we campaign. So no, couldn't agree more. And yeah, that's exactly what people like yourself that are on the ground stomping the pavements.
Well, reaching across the divide is like the Rangers Celtic thing.
Oh, we'll not go into that.
All right.
No, I think we should. But you're obviously a Rangers fan.
Yes, but a lot of people are under the impression that all Rangers supporters are unionists.
100%.
No,
That is the.
No, I don't know if it's just me, I used to be a home and away guy every week when I lived in Glasgow.
Really?
Yeah. Since I moved through here and since Rangers became so popular and you got to get a season ticket, blah blah blah, one of my friends, he's still got a season ticket, so I only get through there very rarely, but I always watch it on the telly. And I think you'll find...
You're not missing much, but...
Yeah, shut up. I think you will find 3-0. I think you will find... I think you will find that there are a lot of Union Jacks there.
Yeah, of course.
Union flag.
Of course, yeah.
But ever so slowly and ever so gradually, there's saltires appearing. There's lion rampants appearing. Now I don't know if I'm just imagining it, but I think there's more now than there's ever been.
Probably.
And there is.
Yeah.
I don't think MD's done an official poll about how many Rangers supporters are independent supporters, but the one poll that I did see, it put it in the 40%. Go across the city.
40%?
Around about 40%. Go across the city in the same poll, and I don't know the authenticity of it, but it was in the 70s.
Yeah, I mean...
So you beat us there.
Yeah, I mean... You know I support Celtic, and
we've all got our crosses today.
we got there is the whole thing of people adopting, and as Cameron and I always talk about this, but it's the reframing of how you said that is every Rangers fan a unionist, and we know that's not true. We might have different tastes, like you've got really bad taste in football, I've got really good taste in football, but we agree that that's a lie. That there is a lot of, and I've got one of my best friends is a Rangers fan, and he's also his whole family are staunch indie people, different indie groups, but definitely indie people. So on that, my experience of it, and I've told you about this before, is the Union Jack for me. I wouldn't agree about anyone ever desecrating a flag. But the Union Jack for me, for personal reasons, is sometimes I found it to be a little bit intimidating, and the saltire completely different. But I do understand people that want to wave their flag, and we've recently had a coronation and stuff like that.
We have.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If people want to be patriotic in their own country, in any country,
absolutely,
no problem. And we would like to be the same.
We are the same.
We are the same.
We wave.
And
yes.
We wave our flag.
There might be a couple of saltires in
yeah,
there.
just a couple. But I've got a very valid reason why I don't like it, and it's nothing to do with actually the establishment and that kind of thing. It's because when I was younger, a lot of far right groups have adopted the flag. Sadly, stolen the flag, and I had an experience when I was younger. I won't go into detail, but I was attacked. And growing up, when I saw that flag, and it didn't happen in Scotland, it was when we were visiting family down south, the incident. And growing up, whenever I saw the British flag, it did give me a little bit of an uncomfortable feeling. And then when I do see it on TV, I understand why people think that maybe like Rangers have adopted the British flag, so they maybe get, I don't know what the word is, but kind of painted, tarnished.
The same brush.
Yeah, you know, tarnished with that. But then, as I say, my best friend's a Rangers fan. A lot of my close friends in the mosque are Rangers fans. So, you know, we're always arguing about football. But what I don't get involved in is the old historic sort of the sectarian side of it and stuff like that, you know. The
sectarian side of it was, growing up in the east end of Glasgow as I did, it was everywhere.
Yeah.
It was part of normal life.
Yeah.
And it was steeped into you, to the extent that when you were, as we used to say, out of the dancing, one of the first questions you would ask a lassie, what school did you go to? Yeah. And if it was Saint this, you would be like, well, that's the end of that. And for me, growing up with it, you get to a certain age, well, why am I saying this? You know? And I've got Catholic friends, and at that time, Rangers certainly wouldn't sign a Catholic. Yeah. I remember Rangers signing a Catholic with Mo Johnson.
Mo Johnson, that's right, I remember that.
And it was a fantastic day. Yeah.
Graham Souness was a manager
then,
wasn't he?
Absolutely. And I remember having a conversation, it was on the news, in the interview, they'd done a vox pop of these Rangers supporters, and they're there with their sectarians. I'll never be back at Ibrox. I remember saying to the person that I was watching the news with, that is exactly the person we don't want at Ibrox. Take their sectarianism away. I'm a Rangers supporter because Not because Protestantism or Catholicism, because I was a Rangers supporter.
Yeah, and my
That's how it was.
my story is exactly the same. I think I've told you about this. I was in primary 3 or primary 4, and my teacher was a Celtic fan in Glasgow.
Yeah.
And he planned one weekend to take the whole class to the football, and it was literally that was the reason that I support Celtic. So if my teacher was a Rangers fan or a Partick fan, and he ended up taking us to the football, we would have supported that team. That's just how
the reason I would have been a Clyde supporter, but I was born. My mother was 40 when she had me, so my father was a Clyde supporter, and I only heard this through my sister and my brother. She said to my father, "Don't you think you're going to that football? You're staying here to look at." So I never get taken with my father to watch Clyde, and then you go to school and you're and
what your pals are supporting.
Pals are supporting Rangers, and that's why I became a Rangers supporter.
Should be Dunfermline for you.
I am a Pars fan. Obviously, that's my local team. I get along, but as I say, where we grew up in Glasgow,
Plastic Pars.
where we enjoy the football.
Absolutely.
You know, we enjoy the atmosphere, and that's what I remember going along to Parkhead for the first time. And it was when everybody was singing. I'd never experienced anything like it. Like you never walk alone, and the sound and the
It is absolutely amazing.
and that's why I started supporting them. But obviously, Dunfermline are my local team. I try and get along as much as I can.
I remember the first game, and a Rangers game I went to. I wasn't allowed to go to an Old Firm game. There was a lot of trouble at that time. But I went to the first game, and I went over the terracing, and it was against Dundee United, and they were out doing their warm up, and I was looking at it, and it was in colour.
Yeah.
It was. I'd always watch football on the telly, and it was in black and white, and now there was this blue and tangerine, and it stuck with me. It was in colour. It was a fantastic thing. I still go to football, and I took one of my next door neighbours' fathers, who's unfortunately no longer with us, in a game in the middle of winter when you're walking along to the stadium and the floodlights are on. Even though it wasn't my team, it was Dunfermline, as you say. Hairs in the back of your neck. It's an amazing experience.
My daughter's first time was at East End Park to watch Dunfermline, and she was 5, and I don't think she watched the football.
No.
And she was just looking around at the crowd and the noise, and I think there was 2 or 3 goals in that game, and the cheer and everything like that. That was her hooked.
Yeah.
Like she just wanted to play football.
Unfortunately, I've got a similar story with a different ending. I took my other daughter Rachel to her first game. It was actually at Parkhead, not at an Old Firm game. It was a cup semi-final. Hampden was out of commission, and I was looking forward to this. It's your first game and all the rest of it. But it says just in case you don't get involved, it will take your colouring book so you can
keep her busy.
So it gets into the ground, and I was there with my mates. And before kick-off, the colouring book's out. Kick-off, she's still colouring in. She never took to football. However, recently she started to get into football during the last Euros. She started to get into her football and really enjoys it now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Amazing. We'll leave the football.
All right.
Part of football now.
Next season's another season. So.
Aye. Well, we'll enjoy it for now.
Yeah.
So going on back to the movement itself. I know you're involved with the wider Yes movement. You're a big proponent of uniting the parties, aren't you?
Oh, for sure, absolutely. SNP is the only bus that's going to get us to independence, but we can't do it on our own. We need everybody else to come along to the party. And I wish I used to do the Twitter account for SNP. Thankfully, some nice young gentleman, maybe not a million miles away from us, took it off me and is doing a far better job. However, I still do Twitter, and the amount of tribal within the Yes within the movement, put it on the back burner. Yes, we've got different views. Yes, once we get to independence, we're still going to have different views, and maybe even Scottish Labour.
Absolutely, there will be.
We'll become a socialist party again.
There will be different groups.
But we can't get to that stage
until we're
united.
We can work that out ourselves, but I know we were talking about sort of. It's interesting that Ian said that about divisions within the movement itself. I know you've got a few.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a big pet peeve of mine is the fact that we've got all this division. And do you think that a large part of it maybe came from the fact that, as you say, the SNP are the only realistic vehicle, political vehicle for us to get there?
Yep.
But unfortunately, they've had to spend the last however many it was 9 years trying to steer the ship and prove their competence.
Being a government and being a very good government.
Yeah. And do you think to some extent it's alienated people who are, they're not particularly happy about the sort of the way that it's being run?
You wrote a very good blog which I read, and I couldn't have agreed with more. And you put it very well. In 2014, we were all united. It was all new. It was, we want an independent Scotland. And as we've went on, and we all still want an independent Scotland, but we've all got a different idea of how that independent Scotland will be. So you're going to get splinter groups, fragments of how people want to be. That's why Alba came into existence.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of friends in Alba, and we're all after the same thing. We've all got a slightly different idea what it will be like once we get there, and we've all got a slightly different idea of how to get there. But we're not going to get there without us all being united.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's I'm a big proponent of that as well. Like, we all need.
But I think going back to the SNP and government, and I think we have proved that we are good in government, despite what Labour will say at every opportunity that the education system's worse, the NHS is worse. Of course, it's not. It's not without its difficulties. But we're doing a good job, and we shouldn't forget that. And during the campaign or the hustings for the First Minister, I think we forgot that we've done a really good job. So yeah, I think we should focus on that going ahead.
And I guess that's why it's like before we got sort of sidetracked by the Rangers v Celtic debate. But like I think that's where the Independence Minister comes in and the sort of ability to create this unified.
Does anybody know what football team he supports, by the way?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Cumbernauld.
Yeah.
Cumbernauld.
Oh, it'll be Clyde then.
Could be. But yeah, I guess that's where it comes in. And if we are going to achieve it, it needs to be some sort of reunification of us all.
I accepting everybody for their differences.
Yeah.
But looking at the goal, the goal's independence. End of.
I think one of the reasons that Cameron and I wanted to have a podcast as well, or the Yes in the City show.
A show, yeah.
Show, sorry.
We're in colour. Not like the old football.
No.
Black and white.
It was to give people a platform to come and speak, because obviously one platform we don't have is the media is always against
never going to have that
media, and I feel like for me personally that a lot of the divisions that we have got, be it in the SNP or be it in the Yes movement, every party's got its own troubles, but it does come a lot of time from the media spin, doesn't it?
I had a thought the other day as I was walking my dog, and you get to do a lot of quality thinking time when you're out walking with the dog. What if we were independent, and what if 95% of the media was for Scotland? What if somebody came along with a great idea, let's join a union with England with 5% of the media?
Exactly.
And virtually, well, when we started the Yes campaign, it was what, 25%? How would they have fared? Would they have got up to 50-55%? No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't.
It would happen in no country in the world. If
No.
you think about it, it's a really interesting analogy you've given. You're reversing it, aren't you? Imagine going to a country now that's been independent for forever, and then saying, "Would you like your neighbours to just take over?"
Let's come up with this idea that they're going to decide 90% of what happens to you in your country.
Yeah.
Good luck with that one, lads.
Well, it would never happen. So how do you see? We've talked about the past and where we are at present. What's your sort of prediction of what's going to happen?
You predict nothing about this.
Mystic Meg.
Yeah, Mystic. That would be called worse.
Mystic Ian.
I've been called worse. No, I think once Hamza gets settled down to doing his day job, as it's often said, people will say, no, this guy is very competent. Just going back to meeting people that have just joined, we've had a big increase in new members. Now, weirdly, it happened since Nicola resigned.
Mm-hmm.
So I see the emails coming through. You've got a new member. You've got a new member, and I thought, did people not like Nicola this much that they're now joining? So I made a point of asking that question when I got them in, and not one person said, "Oh, I'm joining because that Nicola is away now." It was no. I've thought about joining before, and all the rubbish that's getting talked about on the media being, well, Nicola's away, that's the independence movement finished. I want to say to Westminster, no, we're not a one-person party.
That's how they've painted it, that Nicola Sturgeon's left, so now the
yes.
membership's going up. But if you go back to 2014,
Yeah,
when we lost the
When we
referendum,
lost.
what happened then?
and I joined.
And it boosted up at the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
So what happened in 2014? There was an attack by the media on our movement, and then again it was an SNP leadership debate. However, we know that the media were against it. We're falling apart. The movement's falling apart.
Yeah.
And I think after the leadership election was finished, I think a lot of people said again, you know, yeah, we're going to join the movement. So every time they attack us, our membership actually goes up.
Yeah.
But they like to spin it. Oh, it's
Yeah.
because Nicola's going to no good standard. But we all know.
If they thought that this was going to destroy our movement, it's backfired on them big time.
Yeah.
And I know, sorry to interrupt, and I know that it'll never get covered, and it's covered on Twitter that even some people within the movement are denying that there is an increase in the membership. I can 100% from a City of Dunfermline branch, 100% it is growing and growing well.
Were you going to say something?
You know what? I think I don't think I need to say anything. I think that's a great positive sort of.
I do have one
Oh, do
question.
you?
Sorry,
Oh.
I do have a question for you.
It better not be negative.
It's not. It's very
It better
positive.
not
Only
be.
do positives.
When we get independence,
Yeah, honestly,
I think very soon we'll get it.
I've already booked a week off of work.
Well, okay, you can have a week off.
Thank
My question
Thanks,
is, my question is, you've done so much work for the movement.
No.
You have,
No.
right? Well, I think you have,
Thank
right? And where do you see your role when the new country comes in? What are you going to get involved in? You know, everybody's going to have a say in how we're going to shape ourselves.
I'm saying, I have said, once we get independence, I'm going to take a back seat for politics. Will I? I don't know.
No
I don't think
chance.
so.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I enjoy it so much.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a wee story going back to when I was in hospital. After my second operation, I could barely walk 2 steps. Right, I could. The nurses are trying to get me to go from my bed to a chair that was 2 steps away, and I was feeling pretty poor at the time. But thanks to the NHS, they got me back on my feet, and I was out doing a leaflet run, and I've got one of these pacer things on my phone, and I got up to 16,000 steps.
Oh.
So from 2 steps, not being able to do 2 steps, to doing 16,000 on a leaflet run.
Good.
It was a fantastic feeling, it really was. I love campaigning, I love going to the doorstep, I love meeting new members. Will I still be part of it after we get independence? I don't know.
A lot of people say, oh, once we've got independence, that'll be me. And I think they
Yeah.
deserve it. Anyone who
Yeah.
says that's been campaigning for a long time, they say, look, that's our job done.
Yeah.
And then we'll let the other people decide. But I think just what I know of you.
Yeah, I appreciate what you say about being a hard-working grassroots and all the rest of it, but the people that done the real hard yards are the people that done it previous to 2014. They done it. We're lucky enough to have people in the branch that done it in the 60s, the 70s,
Fought for
the 80s.
devolution, even
Yeah,
those things.
they done the real hard yards.
Absolutely. And that's who we learn from, isn't
yeah,
it? Like,
but
yeah.
I'm a Johnny come lately. I'm getting the easy stuff. I really am. But
Well,
enjoying it.
Massive thank you from,
Oh, no
from
problem.
all of
Thanks
us
for
for all the
inviting
work that you do and all the activists around the country.
Oh, for sure.
Because every town's got an Ian Smillie. You know, there's people like that across Scotland.
There are.
You know, so
There are.
yeah, you're a testament. So thank you. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you so much for your time.
Not a problem.
thanks.
Yeah, so that talk with Ian was just absolutely insane. It was so eye opening to hear his story on also like his account of, you know, joining the movement after 2014 and what drives him, and ultimately, you know, his cancer diagnosis and how he's dealt with that. Took it in his stride, as he does everything, it seems. And yeah, it's just so incredible that we were able to hear these stories.
Yeah, he was one of those people, you know, when the membership boosted after 2014, and he said it himself, didn't he, about I want to make sure for next time, you know, make sure he does his part, and he's definitely doing that. And like we were saying earlier, the thousands of activists around the community, he's a great example of, as we say, the backbone of the movement. But yeah, the cancer, again, commend him for speaking out about cancer awareness and stuff like that. So
Yeah, and there's plenty more people like that at home watching who won't stop. So on that note, Naz, what should people watching be doing?
yes, at home, please like, comment and subscribe on the Yes in the City show.
The Yes and the Shitty Show.
The Yes in the City show channel, and for Yes Talks. And yeah, it just helps us. The more you like, the more you subscribe, the more you comment, helps us get the message out there. And yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Just one other thing before I go. Going back to the cancer, I had no symptoms at all. When you get this through the post, don't be a chancer. Get checked for cancer. It'll probably save your life, as it did me.